Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 28th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Kay, will you lead us, please?
Certainly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Absent.
Brent Wheat. Absent. Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Morris Jones.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on September 14th. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those minutes are approved. We also have an amendment to the March 9th minutes. I guess there was a scrivener's error there we want to correct, make sure we include all the information there. So would entertain a motion to approve the amended minutes for our March 9th meeting. Motion to approve the minutes from our March 9th meeting as amended.
What were those? Did we get those?
Mia sent it out to all of you, but it was a food and beverage request for the bike park. And the amount was $34,000, I think, oh, it's right here, hold on a minute. $34,580. And Mia took the minutes that night, but she didn't get the amount in there. So then when we were talking with Kevin, we were like, so she went back, looked at the minutes, and it was there.
As a request
So-
for food and beverage too, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just an update to
I
that.
remembered that what that was, yeah.
Make
The
a motion, we
request
approve
was $34,580, but I believe the motion was just rounded by Mr. Robertson to $34,600.
Oh, it was 34.6. So that's what's in here.
We just need a motion to
Yeah.
approve as amended. So
I make a motion, we approve the March 9th minutes as amended.
Thank you.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. I think it's Sierra.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, council. All right. First up is old business. I don't have anything on my agenda. Is there anything from council?
No, sir.
Okay, move on to new business then. First item up is ordinance 2020-09. Council to consider Cedar Ridge PUD's rezone and ordinance for Cedar Ridge first reading. Ben Bontrager.
Good evening, council members. I will do my best to be brief on this and allow the applicant a little bit of time to talk about their development that they're proposing here. Just to talk a little bit procedurally, this is a PUD rezone for this property. We've had a couple of these come through the council in the last few years. What that means is there is a base zoning district, which in this case is a single-family SF2 zoning district that establishes the uses. And then essentially what they do is they write their own ordinance as associated with the development standards, architectural standards, landscape standards, allows some creativity and some flexibility on certain things. And this is a property that definitely needs some flexibility on how it develops because some of the environmental and natural constraints associated with the property. So if they could pull up the computer screen, hopefully this is the site we're talking about. This is on East Washington Street. Edgewood subdivision is just to the west and adjacent, and then Morningside neighborhood is just to the north and adjacent. This property is challenging for a couple of reasons, but the primary one is the fact that it's bordered on the east and south sides by the creek that has a fairly significant amount of floodplain associated with it. So you've got a 50 or so, 55 or so acre site here, but there's a significant portion, a percentage of that total acreage that's in the floodplain, and there's significant restrictions and challenges developing the floodplain. So you've automatically taken a 50 plus acre property and reduced it down in size. So what they're essentially doing here is creating as much developable property as they can. But it's much smaller than the total property, so they've got some flexibility on the lot sizes to allow them to still get an appropriate density here to make the project feasible, but it's restricted to just a certain acreage on the property, a certain part of the property. So that's one of the primary challenges. Of course, all the additional oversight that goes with that related to drainage, which is a big challenge here and a big discussion point at the Planning Commission last week. I can assure you it is going to meet all of the required drainage standards of our stormwater ordinance in terms of both handling the floodplain that's already on the property and the flooding that does occur, and then also the additional stormwater that will be created by the development. So they've got a series of ponds. There will be a pond that handles essentially the overflow from the creek when it does flood, and then 2 other ponds that handle the stormwater that will be created by the development. And what it essentially does is it collects that water in those series of ponds, and it releases the water into the creek at an acceptable rate, so it doesn't inundate the creek like it does now with high volumes that create the backups that we see in this area so frequently. So in terms of the development itself, again, I'll let the applicant go through a lot more of the details in terms of the actual site and how they're looking to develop it. But I did provide for you earlier today the copy of the PUD ordinance, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Just going to hit some of the highlights real quick. As I mentioned, they are doing a PUD rezone and looking at the SF2 standards kind of as the base, but they have established a series of standards for lot area and setbacks, et cetera, that are slightly different than the SF2 standard that allows for them to create that density on the part of the property that they can develop. The overall density on the site is about 2 units per acre, which is pretty low, but it's intensified in just one part of the property. But it allows them to get the amount of lots that they need to make the project feasible. In terms of landscaping, there are 2 large wooded areas on the property now. This one at the north is going to primarily remain intact as a buffer between this neighborhood and Morningside. They will tuck one of their detention ponds into the southwest corner of this area, but otherwise is primarily going to remain as is. In fact, we have also proposed a preservation area which will require this to remain as is, and is essentially preserve and keep trees and underbrush from being removed in this area other than what's necessary for the drainage and other utilities. The one to the south, there's a portion of this that will be removed again for drainage, but again, anything that is along the creek and within the regulated drain associated with the creek will remain unimproved. So you will still see a 75-foot buffer along the inside of that creek that will remain unimproved. It'll provide a buffer. Other things that they are doing that are above and beyond the ordinance requirements, they are going to create a minimum 50-foot buffer along the Edgewood neighborhood. So there's going to be a 50-foot common area buffer. They'll be improved with both mounding and landscaping just to provide some privacy to those folks that live along that area in Edgewood. That's something that the ordinance does not require. We don't require buffers between like uses, but they were willing to do that and responding to some of the concerns that were provided to them by the folks in the Edgewood neighborhood. So they will be providing that landscaping along that, and that's going to be a significant buffer area. Other highlights, architecturally, these are going to be a good quality in terms of architecture. Let me find the page I need for that. Some of the highlights there again, the front facades are going to have significant architectural treatments. All the windows will either have window grids or other architectural treatments like shutters or other trim that's applied to the windows. They are required to have a minimum of 50% masonry. As an alternative to that, if they have less than 50% masonry, they'll have at least 2 different siding styles like lap or shingle or vertical, and then also a 32 square foot covered porch. So they do again have some flexibility on the front facade, but they're creating some interest in some additional architectural standards that you'll see there. They'll make it for a quality front facade. In the PUD ordinance, we also do have some examples of elevations that they've provided. I can find and scroll through those for you here in a second. In addition to that, all homes will include the dimensional roof shingles, which is a typical upgrade. They are providing the side gable overhangs, which is something that staff always looks for. So again, let me go and find some of those elevations for you, and actually the applicant probably can walk through this for you too when they get through into their presentation as well. So I don't want to take up a whole lot more time. I'll wait for this to load. It's going to take a second. But just did want to give you some. This will show you a little bit of layout. I guess I didn't go into this a whole lot yet. Need to zoom out here. This gives you a little bit of idea of the layout. So they will be using an existing stub street at the southwest corner to Edgewood as one entrance to the neighborhood. And then they're also creating a separate entrance off of Fordyce at the north end of the neighborhood that you see depicted here. This kind of gives you an idea of the overall layout. You can see where a lot of the floodplain and/or wooded areas are around the perimeter that they're having to avoid. And then they're essentially intensifying their neighborhood in the areas that they can develop here. This pond here to the far southeast is essentially the overflow for the floodplain, and then the other two ponds that you see here would provide the detention for the neighborhood, are all provide the outflow into the creek at acceptable rates per the stormwater ordinance. That gives you a little bit of an idea of the layout that they're proposing. This is a little bit different than what was originally proposed 50 years ago when Edgewood was developed. This was intended to be additional sections of Edgewood, which is why the stub streets are there, but they were never developed. They did have some desire to provide a separate entrance for their neighborhood to give it some identity, unique identity to itself, and then provide their residents another way to get out of the neighborhood rather than just driving through Edgewood.
Hey, Ben?
Yes, sir.
A question on, that stub is on the southeast corner, correct?
There is a stub on the southwest corner that they will be using in Edgewood. They are just not using the one at the northwest corner. There is an existing one up here at the far north end that will actually be abandoned as part of this project, and they'll create that separate entrance on Fordyce rather than sending everybody in this neighborhood through
So
Edgewood.
the entrance on Fordyce, is that the Nestor property?
Yes.
Right now?
Yes.
Is that lift station going to be moved?
Yeah, so I didn't go into the utilities much. That lift station is actually going to be taken offline. It's actually a very old lift station, does not work very effectively, and needs to be replaced. Actually, the utilities have had a plan to take that offline for some time, and it's just going to be necessary when this neighborhood develops that it's done now. So they will actually take that lift station offline, and then all the users that are on that lift station will be redirected to the north, to the Simplicity lift station that's on the other side of the church property. So the applicant's working to acquire an easement through the church's property to run the sanitary sewer up there to the other lift station. There's plenty of capacity there.
How does that affect the neighbor to the east of the Nestor property?
The lift station removal?
No, any work on that?
Well,
New entrance and so forth?
I mean, it is adjacent to their property,
Right.
Sufficiently distance from them. They are going to provide some landscaping along that entryway to buffer between the entrance and that property. And they've already committed to doing that, and have already probably showed landscaping on their landscaping plan that will do just that. The
Okay.
lift station is on that neighbor's property,
Okay,
but will be taken offline and removed.
okay, so they'll actually have more space.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Ben, in our Unified Development Ordinance, I'm assuming that we require all home elevations, floor elevations to be above flood stage? Is that going to be?
Yes. So actually, every one of these lots is outside the floodplain. They're not
Outside
doing
the
any
floodplain.
lots in the floodplain. So what they've done, at the south end, there is some magic, this engineering magic that's happening. They're doing some cut and fill. So they're going to remove part of that property from the floodplain and replace it elsewhere on the property, the volume, to get them a little bit more developable area, but there is no lot that's in the floodplain as part of this plan. So there won't be anybody that has to go 2 feet above, or
Yeah, 'cause
anybody that has
that's
to play
just-
flood insurance or anything like that. They are
Yeah.
all outside the floodplain.
Okay. My other question is let's see. Streets within the district shall be a minimum 30 feet back of curb and so forth. So there'll probably be no both side parking on both sides.
Yeah, essentially, actually, we've updated our standards, and that is the minimum standard now is 30 foot back of curb, so they're matching our current standard. What essentially that we added in there was the saying that they would only allow parking on one side of the street, just to make sure we have the proper safety clear zone for safety vehicles to get through the 20 feet.
Right. Right.
Any other questions for Ben?
The only other question I have, Ben, is on the sidewalks. When they get to a crossing or a street, they're going to be sure they're ADA, right?
Oh, absolutely, that's
We shouldn't
that's a
have to go
requirement
back.
for any new sidewalks.
Because I don't want us to have to go back and,
No, they will all include all the applicable ADA requirements
Right.
included.
and then the other, let's see. I know you said the fencing there's no chain link fencing, right?
Yes, yeah, there's, chain link fencing is prohibited, which is above and beyond what our ordinance typically
Right.
requires, and we also don't allow fences in the front yard, which our ordinance does also allow,
Right.
but their PUD ordinance has further restrictions on fences.
Do they have, I'll ask her if she has a standard for that when she comes up.
Sure.
Any other questions for Ben before I have the applicant come forward? Okay. Ben, do you want to introduce the applicant?
Sure. With us tonight is a representative from Fisher Homes, Amanda Webb, and she's been working with me throughout this process, and she'd be happy to provide some additional information for you.
Good evening. Thank you guys for taking the time to hear us tonight. My name's Amanda Webb. I am with Grand Communities, and Grand Communities is actually the affiliated developer for Fisher Homes. So I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Fisher Homes, but just really quick, we were founded in 1980. We celebrate our 40th anniversary this year. It is a privately owned home builder. We're out of Erlanger, Kentucky, so not too far from here. We have several communities throughout the Indianapolis market. One that's very similar to Cedar Run, what we're proposing here tonight, would be Indigo Run, and that's southeast side of Indianapolis. I think you guys are all very familiar with the site. We were here for the annexation a couple months back, so I'll kind of skip over these next couple of slides here. This just kind of outlines the property, similar to what staff was just showing. I'll get here into our site plan. Ben did a really great job summarizing it, so I'll try to be brief. As Ben noted, it is 58 acres, approximately 58 acres. We're proposing 115 home sites. Currently, this plan is depicting about 50% of our site overall will be dedicated to open space. We are also proposing a trail to go around the pond area, which will help amenitize the pond. We have agreed to the tree preservation easement that the Planning Commission recommended for council. So we've agreed to that. That'll be in the northeastern corner. We've also put in or added in a minimum 50-foot buffer that goes, really buffers between the Edgewood residents and our new community. There are some encroachments in that area, so we're working with the residents, and we're proposing some landscaping, some mounding, just really nice landscaping, just to kind of give them a buffer as well. A couple additional benefits. Ben mentioned the sanitary lift station. We are proposing to take the sanitary and put a new sanitary line across the church property, which that will allow for the city to take off that Morningside lift station. We've also proposed a fairly efficient street and utility layout, which also helps long-term benefits with the city with maintenance and layout with maintenance benefits. Make sure I haven't missed anything here. The next slide that I want to show, this is a computer-generated model, so bear with me. It does show a relationship between the wooded area, the trees, and the home sites. So I really like this slide just because it does do a good job depicting the relationship of the open space and the home sites. This slide also kind of shows that buffer of Edgewood, so you'll see that 50-foot mound, and then our property line begins. So there is sufficient separation between the new community and the existing communities. This also shows the representation of the man ditch, and as Ben noted, there is an easement across that, so it's 75 foot on each side of the stream that we have to allow to be natural. We can't put any buildings, any lots, or anything in that. So that kind of summarizes really the vision, the community. So I just want to kind of go in and touch on our homes and the product that we're offering here. We are offering what we call our Maple Street product. It's basically a ranch and two-story homes. They start around 1,400 square feet. And then they go all the way up to 2,900 square feet. And that's just the base. So there are some additional add-ons that you can do. We'll go into some elevations. These are just some example elevations that we have. I think there are several more within your packet, but I just wanted to give you an idea of a few different things. We do have a wide range of styles and types of architecture. You can see in these slides, you'll see the more modern home styles as well as the Western craftsmanship, and we even have a coastal elevation. So here's a couple more different samples of the elevation. There's one of our one-story ranches as well as the 2 stories. And as Ben had noted, we are committed to doing the dimensional shingles. We are committed to masonry requirements, and there was another requirement where if the masonry is less than 50%, then there's 2 types of siding and a porch, a covered porch. We've also committed to the window grids and the overhangs, and we're working with staff on all of that, as well as some additional landscaping and additional front yard tree. Here's just to transition into some of our interiors. We are, as we do home building, we do allow for, once a family comes in and selects their floor plan, then they have the ability to go in and kind of customize it and really make it their own. So the next few slides just show some different examples of interiors. You see lofts, fireplaces, granite countertops, some upgraded cabinetry, and different styles of a bathroom. Just to go into a community vision, this just gives a couple examples of some ponds with a fountain. We're proposing a fountain in our pond, and the signage. I'm not sure, Ben didn't really mention on the signage, but the city does require a 6-foot sign, and in our zoning text, we did ask that, you can see up here in the sign, where the sign is, that's 6 foot, but we're asking for some additional structure above the 6 foot, so we have written that into our zoning text, just to give us the flexibility to give you guys a little bit more of an upgraded, a higher end sign. Just to kind of go over and summarize some of the benefits to the city of this rezoning, we feel that we're bringing you guys a really great product. We're providing you guys with an efficient street and utility layout. Like I mentioned before, it does minimize your long-term maintenance cost, high-quality housing stock, as well as committed to the stormwater detention, making sure that none of our homes fall within that floodplain. Nobody's required to have flood insurance. And preserving natural features of the woodlands, and also providing the buffer and the enhanced landscaping. Just really quick, I want to kind of go over a summary because I think it's really important. Back in July, we actually met with the Planning Commission. That was when we first presented our annexation to the Planning Commission. We had several people in attendance that night. And then following that week, we had our neighborhood meeting where we had about 30 different people over at the church, and we met with the residents, we listened to their concerns, talked through things. And then following up to that, we had our technical advisory committee meeting. We received comments, feedback, we tried to address what we could. Some of it, quite a bit of it, will be things that we'll address in the primary plat. And then we had our Planning Commission meeting last Monday, which we received a positive recommendation on to council, and they also approved our preliminary development plan. So our next steps are really just here tonight for first reading to answer, hopefully be able to answer all of your questions, and then on the 13th, I believe it's the 13th, for our second reading and the vote. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free.
Any questions for Amanda?
I have one. I'm looking at your plan. It's a nice layout that you've done here, so.
Thank you.
You talked about the open spaces. How is that accessible to the neighborhood for those open spaces? How do they get there?
Sure. Let me see here. If I can just go back, let me go back on the slide here. Oops. Okay. It's kind of hard to see on this plan, actually. So I had mentioned that we're going to put a trail around the pond.
Yes.
So there will be, in between a couple home sites, a pathway or a break of HOA property that punches back to that pond. And then the trail, I believe we're proposing at the end of that north cul-de-sac, another break which will punch back into that open space. And then when you come into the southern drive off of Edgewood, that's all open space right there, so you can access it through there as well. And you can also, if you needed to, the access along the Edgewood, the mounding, that would be accessible at both entrances as well.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yes.
Good, Dick.
Mike? I see we got lighting on the dwellings, dusk and dawn, carriage lighting and so forth.
Yes.
Is there going to be street lighting in the street?
Yes, yes. And I believe it meets city standards is what we're proposing.
Whatever the city standards are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Where are you going to direct the construction traffic?
It would come off of Fordyce, so it would not go through the existing Edgewood community.
And so they're going to, like, how are they going to get to Fordyce? You know, are they coming down Grant Street?
Sure. That would be, I don't know which direction they'd be coming from.
Okay.
That's kind of down the road, but we could definitely look into that. But
Okay.
it would be coming off of Fordyce. We're proposing at our entrance, it would be coming off of Fordyce.
Okay, I just, you know, we would want to try to keep it off of Meridian and East Street and those,
Sure, that makes sense. Yes, yes.
okay.
We can work through with them on the details on that for sure.
Yeah, a little bit down the road when we get to
Yep.
that point of our construction, definitely.
I would be getting questions about that before you get down the road on it, so that's
Sure.
what I wanted to know.
Definitely, we'll keep that in mind, for sure.
Well, it's going to be a little difficult because we're looking at Grant Street or Fordyce Street, Kevin and 22, and Grant Street will probably be at about the same time. Construction 22, 23.
Yeah, that's correct. Ideally, we would be under construction on Fordyce in 2022, Grant Street in 23 north of Washington
Yeah.
Street, and Grant Street south of Washington in 24. So that side of town is going to be a little cumbersome to get through with traffic. But we'll work with them. There are alternate ways to get to the site. And, but we would be committed to keeping the construction traffic out of Elmwood and bringing that in off of Fordyce, whether they're coming in from Washington Street to John Bart and in on the west side of the project, or we look at another alternate way. But yeah, I would also agree, keeping them off of, east of Meridian is going to be important, so they would need to most likely come in off of 39 to Ulen Boulevard to Grant Street, or coming in from the east on Fordyce. But we'll work through all those details as we get to construction. Keep in mind, this site is going to be built in multiple phases. So this is not going to be a major impact to traffic. Certainly not in the first year, but also as the project develops out. It's a relatively minor impact into our traffic systems.
Just going to be busy in that area for a while.
Yep.
I have
Good, Keith.
On your ponds, are those going to be detention or retention ponds?
They will be detention with wet water.
Okay, so they will be, when it doesn't rain for a while, it's going to be dry
No, they'll have water in them.
all the time, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So then it's up to you and your HOA to keep them clean, right?
Absolutely. They will be, as of right now, they'll be on HOA property. They'll be owned and maintained by the HOA.
Right.
Yep.
Because sometimes they forget,
Understood.
and we have to remind them.
Okay. Anything, other questions specific to the ordinance?
No, sir.
Okay. Any public comment concerning ordinance 2020-09? No sudden movements. Okay. Rob, can you read ordinance 2020-09 first reading, please?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance number 2020-09, again, is the Cedar Ridge PUD ordinance. As Ben indicated, the City Advisory Plan Commission considered petition docket 20-33 filed with the commission requesting an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance and to the zoning map, and all that's described on this ordinance in Exhibit A. The commission forwarded docket 20-33 after a public hearing held on September 21st to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation by a vote of 9-0 in accordance with the Indiana Code. The Secretary of the Commission certified the action of the Commission to this council on September 22nd, 2020, and this ordinance has several sections, as Ben went through. The first, Section 1, is the applicability of the ordinance. Section 2 talks about the definitions. The concept plan is described in Exhibit B. Section 4 has the underlining zoning district. Section 5 has the permitted uses. Section 6 talks about general regulations, and Section 7 talks about the development standards that are all set forth in there. And Exhibit C outlines the elevation character that, again, Ben highlighted a little bit for you. So that covers it.
Okay. Ordinance 2020-09 has been read on first reading. We'll take it up at our next meeting, which will be Tuesday, October 13th at 7:15 p.m. Okay, next item up is Resolution 2020-06, which is an additional local income tax request from the Lebanon Police Department. Chief Morgan?
Good evening, Council. So if you guys will recall, in 2019 at our budget meeting, the police department was asking for $445,000 to outfit the vehicles. We knew that number was pretty high, but we couldn't give you an accurate number because we didn't know exactly how much of our stuff was going to be able to be transferred from the old vehicles to the new vehicles. So we decided at that point that we would just wait and ask you guys for it when the time came and we knew exactly what we need to ask. So at this point, we know what the number is. It's $257,558. The number came down tremendously. A lot of it was because we were able to use a lot of the old stuff. And then plus we made some cuts on some of the stuff that we were putting in cars that we're not doing anymore. We're not paying for extra stuff. So we were able to cut the number down almost in half. So the police department's asking for that out of the lit budget.
Okay. Rob, actually, any questions for Chief Morgan concerning this?
No, sir.
Okay. Rob, do you mind reading Resolution 2020-06 for us, please?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Resolution 2020-06, again, is for an additional appropriation. It's been determined now it's necessary to appropriate more money than was originally appropriated in the annual budget. This resolution is to appropriate funds for installation of equipment for new police vehicles. The following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of Fund 105, and that'll be, again, in the amount of $257,558 in the 4,000 capital outlay budget classification.
Okay, Resolution 2020-06 has been read. Any further discussion from council?
No, sir.
Any public comment? Okay, this time then I would entertain a motion concerning Resolution 2020-06.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2020-06 in the amount of $257,558.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that resolution is adopted. Thank you, council. Thank you, chief. All right, next up is Resolution 2020-07, approving issuance of bonds by the Lebanon Public Library. Bo, do you want to come forward real quick again, just to, at our last meeting, we had Bo kind of talk about briefly about a little bit of a change in the law, that now the library is required to come to us to seek approval for kind of oversight, essentially, from a budgetary standpoint. So last night, I'll let Bo kind of talk about what they plan to do with the bonding.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bo Cunningham. I'm director of the Lebanon Public Library. I'm here tonight to ask the council to approve the resolution that would allow us to issue a general obligation debt. We're looking for 1.7 million. This money will go into the actual building itself. We're looking at new roof, new gutters, fixing the exterior of the building where there's some issues. Being in the old Carnegie building, we have some joints that are coming loose that we need to have remortared. The windows need to be looked at on the old Carnegie building. We think this will be a good move forward to it. We've worked with Baker Tilly and Ice Miller to come up with the bond for us. And then we're working with OMS Architecture to look at the actual work on the building.
Okay. And just a reminder too, they are their own taxing authority, but I guess the state now looks at us as the kind of the overseeing body of them, which is why they need to seek our approval for it. So, any questions concerning Resolution 2020-07?
No, sir.
Rob, or actually, I'm sorry, I should ask any questions for Bo. Okay, Rob, can you read Resolution 2020-07, please?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Again, this is Resolution 2020-07, approving the issuance of bonds by the Lebanon Public Library. Again, the Lebanon Public Library is a public library organized under existing law. The Board of Trustees of the library finds that its present facilities are not adequate to provide the proper library services to present and future library patrons utilizing its facility, and the Board of the library finds that there are not sufficient funds available or provided in the existing taxing levies with which to pay the total cost of renovation and improvements to the public library, so that the library should issue bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.7 million for the purpose of providing funds to be applied to the project. The library anticipates that the issuance of these bonds will not result in an increase in the library's tax rate due to existing debt being repaid. And Indiana code requires that before an appointed library board may issue bonds, it must obtain the approval of the applicable fiscal body. More than 50% of the parcels of real estate within the library district are located inside the city of Lebanon, Indiana, and pursuant to Indiana code, this council is the applicable fiscal body to approve the issuance of the bonds. Therefore, be it resolved that the issuance of the bonds by the library to be repaid solely by the library for the purpose of obtaining funds to be applied on the cost of the project in the principal amount not to exceed $1.7 million is hereby approved and authorized.
Any further questions now that the resolution's been read?
No, sir.
Okay. Then at this time, we'll entertain a motion concerning Resolution 2020-07.
I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2020-07, Resolution Common Council, City of Lebanon, approving the issuance of bonds for the Lebanon Public Library.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That resolution is adopted. Thank you, Bo, and good luck on your improvements.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Council, that concludes what I have for new business. Is there anything from you?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to claims then, and we'll entertain a motion concerning the claims.
Make a motion, we pay the claims.
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Claims are approved. And any announcements or discussion? Okay. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Our next city council meeting will be Tuesday.
I've never done it. That's my first time.
Just a reminder, Tuesday, October 13th, because of Columbus Day. So we're delayed a day for that. So Tuesday, October 13th at 7:15 PM. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.